What is up, you guys? Matt McKeever here with
Mike Rosehart.
And so we're doing another episode of Mike and Matt on Fire. And so this episode, I kind of wanted to just talk to you guys and talk with Mike about the idea of stealth wealth. And if you're not familiar, the idea of stealth wealth essentially is kind of keeping your cards close to your chest, not really letting other people know kind of what you have. And in particular, I want to talk about the idea of stealth wealth while you're still working your day job, or let's maybe call it stealth fire. So, Mike, do you want to just kind of dive in, maybe general thoughts on stealth wealth first, and then we'll get into our more personal?
You know, with stealth wealth, I think, and stealth fire specifically, where you're keeping kind of a secret that you're going down this path towards financial independence, retiring early. There are a lot of distinct actual advantages, I think, to doing that. One specifically, your employer, like for instance, if I had disclosed in my own personal life, to my employers that I was planning to retire early, I wouldn't have been looked on as favorably for promotions.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have put me on the cooler projects. They would have thought, this guy's just here to use us for a couple of years or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just, he's not important, he's not a rising star. Or the other thing that's weird is people assume automatically that there's this that I'm automatically not engaged in what I'm doing because I have this other goal.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, Mike doesn't really care about the project because he just wants financial independence. And it's like, well, you know what, you like cars. Does that mean you can't
right?
do well in this project because you're obsessed with cars?
Or you're in 3 softball leagues.
Right? And you spend more time playing like softball than I spent thinking about working on fire or real estate. Does that mean that, I'm less competent than you, right? So it's just, and it's weird that it's like that, right?
And so I had a personal experience. So when I was about maybe 3 years before I quit my day job, I switched careers and joined a pharmaceutical company. And while there, our first Christmas party, I worked in the accounting department. I was the controller, and our CFO somehow had found out. How did it come out? I forget anyways, he found out that I had 4 rental properties, plus had my own principal residence. And so, people are starting to drink a little bit, it's Christmas party, all that. And so he starts going off about how I don't need the job, and that come raise time, they won't have to worry about me because I'm doing so well and stuff. And again, he brought up the same argument, the idea of oh, Matt can't be working that hard because he's doing all these other things. And I found it so frustrating and so demotivating. And the funny thing is, those little jabs were things where I was like, yeah, I need to double down on this financial independence thing. Literally, I believe his actions directly impacted me wanting fire even more. And I can remember when I was in public accounting at BDO in the London office, again, a partner discussing about my priorities, right? Because they knew that I had a couple rental properties, and discussing clearly you're not focused on the partner path because you're doing these other endeavors. And the craziest thing to me was, as a chartered accountant, I wasn't on the partner path, but if I was focused on the partner path, by having rental properties, it actually forces me to network more. I learn more about business. It's a reason to learn about the tax deductions for a rental property. It literally aligned so well with being an accountant that it blew my mind. But everyone just has their blinders on or their generic assumptions, and I found it extremely frustrating. So after that first experience at BDO, I purposely tried to keep my cards closer. And when my CFO had found out I owned a bunch of rental properties at my next job, I was very frustrated because I knew that was going to create a glass ceiling for me. So I just thought it would be kind of important to discuss the idea of it, because at the same time, it's hard because especially when you first discover fire, you're so fired up about it. You're like, this is amazing. Hey, did you know that you can do this? And I know you kind of had a similar experience, not necessarily just through work, but with family members when you first started discussing the idea of actually quitting your day job, that it wasn't necessarily well received.
Yeah, no, for me it was actually not that well received by family and by friends. Specifically, I think, people have these preconceived notions about things, and you gotta think about it this way. If someone's spent 30 or 50 years of their life grinding, right?
Yeah.
They've sold their soul, and they have to rationalize that what they did was the right decision, and that, to feel good about themselves, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so they have formed these ideas that this is this worked for me, this should work for you. And why would you reject this advice that I've given you? Mike, work 50 years, get a great pension, and retire at 70. This is the ideal, or whatever. Or the things where people say you stop working and you die. They say all these kinds of slogans, right? And It's honestly, I think, spawned from like the corporate world kind of pushes us down on people, and we sort of like metabolize that and internalize it and sort of make it a way of life, and we believe that the only way is to, work till we effectively die, or till we, reach this like old age where we're no longer productive. And it's just not the case. I did receive a lot of like personal, I've gotten to like screaming matches with certain like friends and things like that, and people who just didn't understand. And it's maybe they didn't understand, but they also just didn't want to understand.
Yeah.
It was like I could lay out the math, and they didn't want to hear it. It's like, living on like less than what I make. What? Like no.
Yeah.
Like, why would you want to like starve yourself, or like this
why
is so
would
bad.
I work if I wasn't going to spend? Like,
right? It's like we work to spend. It's like, well, if you just shave off a small amount and pay yourself first, even like a quarter of what you're making, that will compound into this huge amount of money. And time value of money is such that. And often people who, have been through that, let's say they've spent 20 to 40 or 20 to 50, just like going through life kind of laissez-faire approach to it, saving nothing, they would think that like I'm judging them because they weren't successful.
They make the assumption you're judging them.
And I'm not. Like totally, if you're 50 and you want to make a change and by 60 you want to be retired, you could. Like you could adopt these principles. It's not too late just because you're older. And so they have this mentality that like, you're judging me, like just because I didn't do this, it can't be a path that you would want to take, or you don't want to take this path, trust me. And then sometimes it even gets to the point where, when you expose yourself like that, you're a bit vulnerable. And we've talked about this in other videos and things like that, where when you expose yourself like that and your plans to retire early, there's a bit of jealousy, I think, there too. And so people, I don't know if like, you think people want your best, you think that they have your best interests at heart and they want what's best for you, but sometimes people just don't, and they're jealous or they're angry about the fact that you're able to be on this path. And instead of asking you like, how could I get on this path too? They just want to put you down, right? They want you they're like, I can't ever get that, and I don't want to learn how, and I don't want to hear how, but you can't get there either because I can't get there. And let me help show you that I'm right and you're wrong, and I'll pull you down with me.
It's like an extreme herd mentality, where the moment you start breaking away from the herd, like, they ostracize you. There's a lot, like, you
get ostracized.
It's so frustrating. So let's maybe talk through some strategies for how to implement stealth wealth. I think first of all, the best thing is that if you're into financial independence, particularly lean fire, it inherently kind of lends itself a bit to stealth wealth, right? Because you're probably not driving a fancy whip. You're probably not living in a giant McMansion in the burbs. So I think there's certain values to stealth wealth as well that kind of like it inherently kind of helps you with your frugality. Because if you were driving fancy and expensive things, well, first of all, obviously that's expensive, so that's going to impact your ability to save. But even more so beyond that, it's when you have the nice house, you then need the nice furniture. And if that lifestyle inflation goes along with even just one leakage of spending can create like an entire flood, right?
Yeah, 100% true. And at the end of the day, it comes down to, I think, and it's funny because we actually do talk about, financial independence at a public scale on YouTube or social media, and we're here talking about like stealth wealth.
But we didn't really talk a lot about it before we quit our day jobs. I had no social media going on, none of that stuff.
That's right.
And you had started at one point and had a blog and had to take it down because of your employer.
Yeah, it was to the point where, I was told in private that I wasn't allowed to talk about real estate or personal finance, anything. Like, don't talk about investing. And I remember just being specifically sat down at work and, like, you might get written out if you talk about these things. And I'm like, what? Like, Joe's talking about his real estate deal he just did. Oh, well, Joe's just struggling to get by. You've got like 5 properties or 6 properties. You're doing this extreme radical thing. I said, what's any difference between him and I? Well, he says, well, here's the thing. People, have talked to me in private about how we don't feel comfortable that you're having success. Like we actually, it doesn't make, like there are people in this office, do you not know, that have 100,000 in debt and no assets. Their net worth is negative 100,000. And for you to say that they can save 10% of their income, that's an insult. They might go home and cry in the bathroom. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, well, maybe they should be crying. If they actually can't save anything and they're spending every single dollar, maybe they need this help. Maybe they need to hear this advice.
Or they need to hit that rock bottom. Like, because literally, if you feel that trapped in your life, like just continuing with the lies to continue to insulate you in that debt slavery, that's not an end goal either. Like that's not something you want to do.
And what's weird is in the corporate world, I remember, one of my first jobs, they sat me down and said, you need to go and get a nice car, get a big mortgage, and get married. Those are the three things that was the advice you get from like the partner. And it's funny because what they want is you to be saddled with debt and unable to make any choices for yourself and have any freedom, right? Because a free employee is a dangerous employee. They could leave at any time. So they actually want you to have debt and be a slave. So when I was sharing that knowledge, it was funny in the corporate world that the head management didn't like that mentality. Imagine if their employees started becoming financially independent. What leverage would they have in their employees when they wanted them to grind until 10 o'clock at night, or they wanted to do that unethical thing? They would have no leverage. And so honestly, the corporate world actually promotes consumerism and debt slavery. And that's how they keep you locked into so I guess going counterculture like this, right? Stealth wealth, back to the main topic, is, really, really important, because when you're trying to go against the grain, it can be very, very difficult. You're already going to experience, a bit of pushback. And if you talk about things like, and it's hard because, I get so excited at work about, I'd read an article of like Mr. My Mustache and be like, oh man, like look what Pete put out, this new article about X and Y, and like you can retire 3 years sooner by doing this, like just changing like your car that you drive, or this one thing. And I would share that, and like someone just bought a brand new car like on credit at 10%, and like I can understand how that would make them feel terrible, right? That like now they're going to be a debt slave for 15 more years.
But at the same time, like information's not personal, right? Like information shouldn't be something that can personally impact you. Like, and like this is maybe a bigger discussion in general, but like I don't know. Are you a big fan of like Jordan B. Peterson? How do you not know?
I'm so.
Oh my god,
I've probably seen it.
Use the internet sometime. So Jordan B. Peterson.
Guys, 100 hours
for you guys, first of all, you guys need to be listening to his podcast. His lectures are on YouTube. I find it very interesting. He's maybe a little bit of a controversial figure, but one thing he recently did an interview with I forget whether it was Channel 4 or someone on the BBC, but in the UK.
I actually might have seen one of his videos.
And so essentially, like, this lady attacked him, right? Because some of his beliefs other people find offensive. And so she was asking, like, what gives you the right to offend someone else? And his argument is, well, in order to think, you have to be willing to offend. And like it was an amazing lecture. I'm going to do a complete disservice to the interview, so you guys should check it out. Yeah, it'll be in the video description down below. But essentially, what it boiled down to, he said, like this entire interview, because she was grilling him on questions, and she was trying to paint him into a corner and get him to promote a certain narrative that he doesn't actually promote. And essentially, he said, listen, I found this interview terribly uncomfortable. What gives you the right to offend me? I think you have that right, and I want you to have that right, but what gives you that right if I don't have the right to offend other people? And when we even look about this bigger, right, it's one thing to be offensive on a one-on-one, but what if all of a sudden, like, I can probably avoid offending Mike and yet still get my point across because it's one-on-one. The moment I'm talking to 10 people, that becomes much more difficult. The moment I'm talking to 1,000 people, that becomes impossible. The moment I talk to 1 million people, it's literally ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
The idea that I'm going to offend no one. So I think it's really important, it's unfortunate that we kind of need to hide our self-wealth, but at the same time, when you first get on your journey to FIRE, it's so much nicer to have a bit of momentum before you start having the complainy pants and the judgy people like jump on you. It's just nice to have a little bit of momentum. Like, you don't have to be actually with the herd, but just like kind of like get some of their tailwinds or whatever it is, and then like use that. Because at the same time, there's no sense making things more difficult for you. Odds are you're not going to convert someone that doesn't want to listen. So I think it's more important to find a community, right? Like, and we built one like London on Fire, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd be surprised to not learn that our community, London on Fire, probably helped you feel more comfortable with actually making the jump and retiring, right?
Most definitely, yeah.
And so I think that that's really important. And so I know some of you maybe live in small towns or rural regions, and so trying to find that network's difficult. But the awesome thing is we got the internet. So you've got a giant community. Yeah. On both of our YouTube channels, you've got a community in the comment section. But even past that, there's great forums like the Early Retirement Extreme. I love that book. I also love their forums. Mr. Money Mustache, the Canadian Money Forum. There's all kinds of communities that are online. Reddit's also a fantastic environment where we're all oriented towards the same goals. And rather than having to constantly fight against the herd or go against the grain or swim against the current, you can actually get some momentum from these communities. So yes. I think, and the same goes with like your personal network of friends and stuff. So thankfully my friends all got it and thought it was cool. From pretty much from the moment I got serious about it, I always had a countdown clock, like an app on my phone that counted down the days until I was going to turn 35, because that was always my plan on when to quit. So, they were supportive, so I was comfortable sharing with them in that environment. I had constantly not received support in my work environment, so I just didn't share it with it. Same with family members. Family members didn't want to hear it. They didn't understand. And even once it became a reality, they still didn't necessarily understand. So, we get it that you're going to be super excited by the idea of financial independence and you just discovered it. But at the same time, just be cognizant of the feedback you're getting from other people, and particularly in the work environment, because we'd hate to see you not get that raise simply because your boss is an asshole and thinks you're too successful for the raise. So that was just kind of one thing I want to paint. Yeah, this is kind of a downer to end on.
Yeah, I don't know.
But the best part is,
there are a lot of pros to
living a good life's the best revenge.
That's right.
And the thing is, once you get fired, you can preach from the top of the hilltop, because there ain't no way they can touch you. There's nothing our old bosses can do to us now, right?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, I put myself out there and maybe I get slapped a little bit by sharing too much or becoming too vulnerable. But at the end of the day, the pros outweigh the cons, right? The good outweighs the bad. And for the 10 people that are hating, there are 900 people that are so thankful I'm out there sharing this message. And
100%.
If I can help 1,000 people, this sounds like this altruistic thing. I do get a bit of enjoyment from the feedback loop. But if I can help 900 or 1,000 or 10,000 people out there unlock financial independence or have a better life than they would have otherwise had, or a more free life than they would have otherwise had, that's worth it. If I get a few lashes on my back so that you guys can become financially independent and financially free to share this message, and
that's what the best part about financial independence or retiring early is, that we've essentially bought our freedom. So now that we literally own our freedom, we are pretty much free to do whatever we want. And so we can, create tons of meetup groups. We can scream from the top of the hilltop about financial independence, and we can make YouTube videos that document our literally our net worth or the properties we own and all that great stuff. And so,
I just spirit of stealth wealth. Are you gonna share your net worth with the world?
Absolutely not. But that being said, it's awesome that others in the community are. I think it's fantastic. And I'm sure someday I'll get comfortable with that. I think if someone really did some sleuthing, they could put it all together, right? We're getting up to close to either 250 or 300 videos now. I've shared my entire life. I'm sure there's some AI that knows me better than I know me.
You're a real estate millionaire. That's the secret.
That's an assumption. The hardest part is, honestly, with real estate, is trying to figure out what's fair market value and how do you value it, right? Some people will value it at the top value it can get. Others will want to value it at, if I have to sell tomorrow, what can I get? And because real estate's not purely liquid, and so there's that weird debate. And then you include all your costs associated with, we've been shooting a lot of videos. Words aren't coming easy to me right now. But all the videos on disposing your assets, because that's another major factor. So I think by almost any traditional sense, that would be a fair thing to say about myself. But at the same time, I guess on the flip side, and now we're kind of getting on a tangent, but I like our tangent, so I'm going to allow it, is we see the gurus that talk about how they have a portfolio of $800 or $1 million in property, and they really bought one, and they've seen crazy appreciation, and is that appreciation 100% real, or did they pick the number at the absolute peak of the market? Were they comparing apples to apples to oranges?
It's a snapshot, guys. Their net worth is your snapshot.
It's dynamic, right?
It's always changing, dynamic. I could say right now, I could say, I'm a real estate millionaire, hypothetically, right? And tomorrow I could be a real estate 100,000-aire, right? Real estate market could crash, I could borrow a ton of money, I could spend lavishly. It's possible that tomorrow I have nothing, right? And so it's just sharing at one point in time where you're at, and you might get some feedback from that, but I welcome it. I think if your story can help even 10 people pull the trigger, then I think that's worth it. So that's where I kind of come.
But just because it's kind of a change from what we were saying, would you actually recommend people that are still in a day job share that stuff?
No.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're on the same page, just so they know what.
Selectively, I will say selectively sharing.
Yeah, I wouldn't be broadcasting. Like, I understand bringing one-on-one people. Like, there were people at work that knew exactly my story, and they were great people, and they got it.
Yeah.
But I was very selective with how I curated who got into that exclusive club.
And there's something wrong with me, I think, mentally, that I really enjoy going against the grain. I like playing devil's advocate. When like 3 people are talking about an idea, I like to be the devil's advocate.
You guys think you know, you have no idea.
I just like sometimes to form the opposing opinion. Even if I don't feel that way, I'll play to the role. And so, if I could just disturb a little shit at work and plant financial independence seeds when, a lot of people don't want to hear it, I don't mind. If one person gains value from it, I enjoy that. So yeah, if you're not like me, be smart about it, guys. Be careful what you share, online on the internet. Just be careful, guys. At the end of the day, you gotta rationalize, is the value of this post or this video worth more than the negative that could come with that? And as long as the answer is yes, then you're good.
Sorry, that's the perfect framework to use on this. And so I think consistently the average person's going to find that sharing that information with their boss is not going to be worth it.
Yes.
And so that's really what I kind of want to establish with this video. But yeah, Mike's 100% right. Use an actual framework to determine whether you're sharing or not.
And just be careful of posting publicly on social media like Facebook. Oh, hate my boss and can't wait to retire. Public, boom, post. And your boss's friend finds it, right?
And it's very interesting because or at least now I'm very flippant on social media, right? Where they're searching friends, Kellen, who still doesn't want it too overly known necessarily exactly where he's at financially. Yeah. So I wonder, is this going to be an ongoing series where just every video we cough Kellen's name at some point?
How many times have we coughed his name?
I think a lot of the videos so far.
More than I can count on one hand.
Yeah. But, so anyways, that was just our opinion on stealth wealth. I'd love to get your opinion, so jump in the comment section down below. Let us know, do you share openly and freely with everyone your current financial picture? Does no one know what you're worth? Do you kill them afterwards? I'd love to know, so jump in the comment section down below.
One quick tidbit too, while we have this on the thing. Sometimes sharing your net worth not your entire net worth, but let's say no one can get any money, and then you share, hey, I've got a little bit of money to play with to invest. Putting that out to the world can often be
there's tons of opportunities can come from that.
People will call
that's a great point.
Let's joint venture. Like, I had no idea you had money to buy in real estate. I got a deal that's gonna make us $100,000. Let's split it.
Yeah.
So sometimes putting it out there has a ton of value too.
Mm-hmm.
And
the nice thing is that's more of a sliver than showing the whole pie. But yeah, I completely agree that often, and I don't like this idea of you put it out into the universe and the universe gives you back. That's a little bit too fuzzy for me. But the idea of if you don't tell anyone, no one knows, that's true. And so that can be a great thing or it can be a terrible thing. But if you're trying to get your first rental property and no one knows you're trying to buy a rental property, it's going to be a lot harder.
That's right. So maybe share the post to friends only in your network, or on a meetup,
or share with all the real estate investors, but don't share it with all the employees,
That's right, exactly right. Someone might have a deal, right, and you don't even know your friend's got a deal in his lap, ready to close. He can't close on himself. He finds out you're in a position, you're interested in buying real estate now, you're interested in financial independence, and you have a little bit of capital. You make that information available to select individuals, and that can pay off in a big way. And that has been a lot of the way we've been able to get deals, just through the network and letting people know that we're open to these opportunities. And so, it's a fine line. Stealth wealth is important, I think, especially in the beginning stages of building wealth.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, I don't think it really matters. Once you have your freedom at the end of the day, your boss isn't you don't have a boss. So there's no...
So, in summary, stealth wealth, hard maybe. Otherwise, appreciate it. We want your comments. Jump in the comment section down below. If you haven't subbed to Mike, jump over to his channel. It's got a lot of momentum. He wants that feedback loop, so give him some subs. And if you're not subbed to me, WTF, guys. I thought we were friends. Hit that sub button. And check out the other videos YouTube wants you to check out. And until next time, remember, making money is a team sport. There's more than enough money in this world for us to all make it. But if you're not saving it, what's the point, guys? Thanks. Bye.
Cool. Mike and Matt on fire. I love these installments, dude.
It's fun when we get rolling.